This is Eric Reeds. I'm here to talk about the decks that were featured in the top cut of the Stambler Open from yesterday, January 13th. And last Stambler Open last week, January 6th, I did not top. This week I did. So I'm also going to be briefly talking about my matches as well. I I'll mostly be focusing on the deck lists of the other players, focusing on the list of the top eight. But I'll also provide my little tournament report because I did well this time. Um, so this was a pretty crazy stacked tournament. The notable player that did not enter was Chuck, but otherwise we had a very diverse format. Excuse me. Very diverse format. A lot of strong players. Jason, May, Little River, James Arnold, just some of the players that entered that were very strong but did not top cut. Um, and overall, just a whole lot of deck diversity, a whole lot of crazy lists. I haven't even gone through all of these yet, and I need to because I love this format and I love seeing all the new things people bring to the table. And just, I mean, looking at the composition. Well, last week we sort of saw that there were not very not very many of the same decks. And this week we kind of saw the reverse. We saw three pretty high placing Bayonet lists. But on the flip side, we see a whole bunch of rogue decks, or not rogue decks, but decks that are kind of not really in the database. We'll get to that later, but we see two, three substitute dolls, but probably like two decks that are considered to be quite out there in terms of their metagame prowess. Um, so I'm going to just briefly talk about my run, and then we'll get into the decks. So I played Ratlock. I played. Well, I'll talk about my list, I guess. I played the a very similar list to what I played last week. Last week I played Mr. Mime EX, the Magical Evens Mr. Mime, because it helps a lot against Mutrick. It can help a lot against Arcanine EX, and it can help against Dragonite EX. And this week so at the last tournament there were no Mutrick, there were no Arcanine, but there was quite a bit of Dragtrode. So I said, okay, well, assuming that holds, and I don't think people like Mutrick just isn't like a very sexy deck. People aren't really like excited to play Mutrick a lot of the time. And so I was thinking, okay, well, I'll just go back to playing the Solid Rage Scramble variant. I've been playing this all week because this is actually my first time using this exact 60, and I was like, okay, let me make sure that this isn't just like a stupid idea. So I grinded it out with the Solid Rage, the Scramble, and no, it felt good. It felt great. Um, the Solid Rage and the Scramble didn't really come up too much in my games, and the Mr. Mime X would have been helpful against Arcanine. But the thing is, that Mr. Mime X is like in a game where like the Mime and the Solid Rage aren't going to do anything. It's better to have the Solid Rage because if you start with Mr. Mime EX, it's like a huge pain to get it off of the bench. And if you prize Giant Stump, it's just like really bad. Rat playing with one bench slot down is it's just not having a good time. So, my deck list is pretty self-explanatory. I've I wouldn't even say that this is like hugely like different from what I've been playing earlier, but there are some other changes I want to make and kind of test things out. I want to test out Rocket's Wobbuffet and test out Holland Researcher and playing in Metal Energy. Just a few ideas on the horizon. But I'm also glad to not be playing Ratlock for the foreseeable future. I kind of want to take a break. So my matches, I got the round one bye. And then I played against ID23's Vileplume, and I've played against this a lot, and we were kind of going back and forth in DMs about some additional ideas that I think he stuck to, um, and yeah, this matchup can honestly go either way. What ended up happening was he got a Vileplume established pretty quickly, but I was able to get Sceptile EX up, and I couldn't get Pidgeot up because I prized Pidgeotto. And so I was just kind of playing on, top decks for a while. But what happened was I got the Sceptile EX up, he got all four Vileplume up, but because I was threatening to KO the Vileplume with Sceptile, so he started setting up another Vileplume. And then I just start harassing the other one with Murkrow, and he sets up another Vileplume. And eventually he got all of his Vileplumes set up, but he didn't have enough energy to attack with them because their attacks are so expensive with Sceptile. And he set them all up. So this one I ended up winning by decking him out. Then I played against Alpid on Arcanine, and this is actually this is the matchup I wanted Mime for because Mime can't get hit with Flame Swirl, and it just trades very nicely with Arcanine. And against Houndoom, honestly, like you don't get one shot by the Houndoom, and Sceptile is just kind of dead in this matchup a lot of the times. So once I saw like I hit the one Arcanine player, I was kind of like, ah man. But what ended up happening was he opened double Growlithe, um, which in RS to PK you almost never want to bench anything in setup. You want to kind of preserve the you want to kind of preserve knowledge to your opponent. You don't want your opponent to know what cards you have in your hand. And like you're just probably not going to get donked. And in a situation like this where you're playing against a lock deck, it can sometimes be beneficial to just say, "Hey, I'm gonna not put anything down the bench." Especially Arcanine. I can't use Stantler to kill Arcanine, so definitely something to consider. But because he set up two Arcanine EX, I prized both Pidgey this game, so I didn't get Pidgeot up either of these two games, and he got the Arcanines both up, but he only played one Warp Point, and I was able to get the Palog going. I did have a really nice admin where I admin into two pals, and that was very essential. I think if that didn't happen, I still was doing all right, but that definitely helped the numbers. And then I played against K, uh, who was on Cradily. I'll show that deck off in a second here. I'd seen him post about this, and I remember reading the report about it and seeing the list, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I got to play this. And I still have not done that, but now I will. Um, but I was a little worried because he does also play Raticate, and he plays Mewstar, so it's kind of like I can't really out resource him in the same way. And he plays like Briny, and he plays Warp Energy, so I kind of figured that this would be like almost a stalemate. I didn't really know how either of us would make progress, but he ended up getting a KO on something, and I was able to just pow all of his energy onto a Cradily, and he prized a Versus Seeker to get back Brinies that I think could have helped, but overall, the game ended with me getting like 16 energy onto Cradily and just stalling out that way. Um, then I played against Tord, and once I saw I was playing against Rayler, like okay, like the ID23 game had me sweating. I was like, okay, Vileplume can go either way. The Alpid game had me sweating, like, okay, this is a bad matchup. The K game had me sweating, like, okay, we're gonna get into like a situation where we're both just using pickup 45 minutes. But the Tord game, I was like, I'll be fine. Like, this is probably the game I was the most confident about in this entire Swiss, which is kind of funny because Tord ended up winning, and he's playing like debatedly the best deck. But this is just a really good matchup for Ratlock, and it's good. Like Bombtar is good for Ratlock as well, but Railer is good like in ways that are like Bombtar can win if something happens that's correct. Railer needs like a whole bunch of things to go correct to win, and I just feel more comfortable in these grindy games. So against Tord, what ended up happening was I I confused the Rayquaza EX with Espeon like on the first turn, and I was able to kind of disrupt him that way. He played 4 Super Scoop Up, which he was sniffing out whenever he got the chance. But through Murkrow, I was able to just keep on getting that Ray EX up, and with Unknown, I got another Ray EX on the bench, and the game basically ended uh, like very soon because he ran out of Super Scoop Ups, and then I was just pushing away other cards with Stantler. I was harassing the Ray EX on the bench with Murkrow, and whenever I got a free turn, I could pick up and get back my resources, like my brinies. And yeah, I let my Pidgeot die to his Curse Stone, which let me have POW access, and then I was able to just push away his last Balloon Berry and take it. So this was really nice. Once I won this, I knew I was like all but assured top 8. I was like, okay, I went 5-0, and I went like it's better to go 5-0 and then lose 2 than it is to lose 2 then go 5-0. Just the way that the numbers work out for the most part. But I was like, okay. Well, if I win one of my next 2 games, I'm definitely guaranteed top 8. And even if I don't, I'm probably gonna get top 8. So I was feeling pretty good. I started to play against fucking Little River. Um, I think I've played Little River in every single tournament that we've both been in. It's just the way the math works out. I guess we both just have similar. I mean, I guess we're probably similar skill level, and so we both just do similarly at most events. This time he was not on Destiny. He was on his Dodrio Dugtrio, and he had an incredible run with this nonsense with this. I dropped my binder and picked up the cards. I love these kinds of lists where you're just like, what does this deck even do? So much of ours to PK nowadays feels like this. I feel like the way that we used to build decks is like, oh, Dragon IDX Delta goes well with Metagross EX Delta. And now it's like, or EX, Dragonite Delta goes well with Metagross Delta. And now it's like, alright, well, Sceptile EX shuts down Electrode, and we also have Doug Trio to prepare for bench damage, and we need to set up Arrow EX in case of Cessation Crystal, but we also need to set up Rocket Swap. And it's just like, so much of the decks now just seem like they're, like, much more tuned, I guess. The ideas in them are much more um, refined, I would say. Anyways, with that aside, I played against Little River, and we were both messaging each other before we got paired. And I was like, "Oh man, like we have both only dropped 1 game. Like this is crazy." And he was like, "Yeah, it's we're doing well." And then we got paired against each other. And I was like, "All right, well, I guess we're dropping 2 games now." Um, this game was the longest game, maybe of the entire tournament, and it got into a situation where I was trying to corner his active with Pidgey, and that was my primary win condition because he didn't really have cards to get his active out of the active. But the problem was I couldn't really corner very many things very well because he also played what's it called, swoop teleporter, so he could swoop out the active, and he played Rocket's Wobbuffet, which could get back 3 Pokemon Retriever, which would stall how long it took him to deck out, which was very relevant here. And eventually got to a position where, in order to get out of the corner lock, he had to evolve into Dodrio, and that ended up being where he quit out of the game because at that point, as long as I can Night Song up the Dodrio, he has no way of getting rid of Dodrio, and it's if he wants to power it up, it's gonna take like all the rest of his energy at that point. So, um, yeah, and he also had like 3 minutes on the clock, and I had like four. So at that point, I was kind of just like, I just don't want to time out, and I probably will get the win if I don't time out. So, crazy game, and I like these like games that don't even really feel like you're playing Pokemon. Like after a while, I was just like, this isn't even like this doesn't spark any of the joy I have when I play like regular TCG. This is something foreign. Um, but it was fun. And then I played against Frosty, who was on Bombtar. I've played Frosty's Bombtar many times with Rat, and so the way that this typically goes is if I get Sceptile EX up before the bomb, then I win. I've never lost a game to Bombtar where I got Sept EX up. If he bombs before I get Sceptile EX up, it's around 50-50. It gets into a very um, chaotic game. If he bombs twice before I get Sceptile EX up, I almost always lose. I don't know if I've won a game where I've gotten bombed twice on like that. Um, Now, what ended up happening was I got Sceptile EX up immediately after he bombed, so that kind of sheltered me against the second bomb. And the problem was that then once I got Pidgeot set up, he immediately got his Lunarok set up. So we're both in this position where we're getting what we want, but it's like the turn too late. And at that point, I had also prized my other Sceptile EX. So my thought was, okay, he's got the he's blown up with Trode. Now I just need to set up double Sceptile EX, and he can't KO both of them at once. But the problem with that plan was that I had prized the other Sceptile, and he was not aware of that maybe, and he was able to get the KO on Sceptile, and he had admined me, so I couldn't get access the uh, to the other Sceptile. And so at that point, I'm staring down a board that has a powered up Dark Tyranitar, and he had evolved Voltorb into Electrode EX. And I had to use Wishing Star with Jirachi. I had a Warp Energy in hand, and I was just desperately trying to get the Retriever to get Retriever into Candy into Sceptile EX. Um, and I couldn't get it off that Jirachi, so I had to warp it out into Murkrow, and then Murkrow Night Song the Electrode to hopefully let it sleep, and so that it wouldn't be able to bomb. And that worked. And then the next turn, I still couldn't get it, but the Electrode stayed sleeping. And then the next turn, I was able to get Sceptile EX up, and I was able to win the game. I got my rat up. I was able to POW up his Electrode again, and that was the end of it. Um, so I went 7-0 in Swiss, and I felt incredible. I was so happy that my time in the format had paid off. And then I looked at my top eight. I was like, oh shit, I gotta play Kanten. And I saw Kanten's deck, and I was like, dude, what? Like, this is my top eight? Like, I think I would have preferred virtually any other. Well, okay, three of the players in top eight I had played, and I felt pretty comfortable against. Like, I was like, yeah, Frosty, Tord, or K. Like, I'm totally fine playing against any of them. Um, But Canton's list specifically, I was like, this is very much geared to beat Ratlock, and it's going to be a hard game. So the first game, so the I'll go through his list in a little bit, but I was uh, I was really not able to find my footing. His Fire Mew was kind of putting an end to all my like YOLO Sceptile strategies, and I was able to get the Sceptile like to KO a Bayonet, but then I had to like bank on him not having the Rainbow Energy, and I was like, all right, if he's got it, he's got it. And if he didn't have it, I could have maybe been in a good position to win, but he had it, so that's how it goes. And then the second game was kind of crazy. He kept on missing reversal Pokemon reversals to get my Sceptile EX up so we could chip at it with his Pokemon. But I kept on hitting. He kept on getting heads on Night Song whenever I would Night Song up his Lunatone. So we were in this really funny like neither of us could get any of our like flips off very well, and we are just in this stalemate every time. And what ended up happening is he prized a warp energy like deep into his prizes, and then right after he took his second to last prize, I powed up. I used my last pow to get up his Soul Rock, attached a warp to Pidgey and cornered, and I was like, I just have to hope he didn't draw the warp as his second to last prize, and he did. And so I do have to say that despite his list looking like completely ready for this exact matchup, I did feel like it was doable both games. Like I feel like both offensively the first game and defensively the second game that I had a chance, and I might have I made definite misplays in both games that I saw like when they happened, and I'm sure that there's more that I made that I haven't thought about much. Um, but overall, I ended up losing to him, but I had a ton of fun. I'm super happy with how I played and my list, and I am really glad that this tournament went on. And so with that, I'm going to talk about these other decks. So I kind of talked about my list, but if you haven't seen it before, this is probably within like 4 cards of being the optimal Ratlock. There's some arguments that you can like replace Hideout with another Stadium. You can include Researcher. You can include a Metal Energy. Little River plays the Psychic Sableye. You can play Mr. Mime EX. But overall, like something similar to this list should be what you are using if you're playing Rat. Um, and let's see here. So Chiro PTCG, he played this Legend Box deck, and I believe he's the prominent player of this deck in Japan. Um, and I know that this is a list that is almost exclusively played over there. I don't know any Americans or Westerners rather who play it. Um, and the idea is that you are using your Latios EX to power up your attackers. And you can use. Oh, this still doesn't. Oh, yeah, it does play Mewtwo. You can use Mewtwo to move that energy around and set up attackers like Regirock EX or Latios Star or Kyogre. And so like Latios EX is natively pretty good. Latias EX is able to power it up, and it just like plays pretty low to the ground. You see he's got the triple warp point and the quad reversal. So both Chiro and Kanton playing reversal in this top 8, which is not a common card in RS to PK. Most players favor, if they're going to play flip cards, ER2 or Super Scoop Up, or if they want to play cards like this, they'll play POW. but Chiro just saying like I want to be in a position where I don't have to rely on the game state. I just have to rely on getting lucky. And if you play four reversals, I mean, the odds are extremely good that you're going to hit heads on one of them at the very least. And sometimes that can be all you need. Um, it's also kind of rarely like a dead card, unlike POW. Like sometimes in the early game with POW, you just like, well, I definitely don't want to discard this card, but I also don't like I can't use it right now. Um, and Reversal is kind of like, well, I can at least disrupt them even in the early game with it. Um, Also, only one Rockets admin. I'm just now kind of realizing that is a very interesting choice. You also see the energy lineup is very strange. He's playing 9 fighting and 6 water. So the fighting is for Regirock EX. He wants to be really prepared against Bombtar. But this no fire is quite strange because he's playing the triple Latios EX. And then the 3 Crystal Beach is also worth noting because uh, he is playing these Holling's cast forms. But yeah, I really wish I got to see some of his games and see how his deck fared. Let me just see who he played against. Um, so he had some very solid wins though. He I mean he beat like Tomi Okaka had a not a very good run this time, but he top 8 at the last tournament. It's very strong. He beat Frosty and he beat Tord. So I mean clearly there's something to this deck. And I'm glad he was able to come out to this tournament and show off this crazy Legend Box deck. And I hope that more people play it. It seems like there's a lot of ways to build it. There's a lot of different attackers, a lot of different ways to play the trainers, and even the energy lineup. And yeah, I'm super excited that he topped. We got to see this, Japanese innovation in the top 8. Um, Also in top 8 we have Jay, and he was playing Bayonet as well. A lot of Bayonet this time. We did not see that many Drag Trode, and we did not see that many Bombtar. So Bayonet ended up being a solid call. If you can guarantee you don't play against those 2 decks specifically, I think Bayonet is very strong. I think Bayonet is like if you knew you weren't going to play against those 2 decks, Bayonet would be like a top 10 or top 15 deck for sure. And so Jay, he went with a sort of more slimmed down Bayonet. It was kind of just focusing on Bayonet EX. Played a pretty slim Lunar Rock package, and the Jolteon Star. No tech attackers other than the Crystal Guardians Bayonet. No real funny business. He also played 4 Warp Point, 4 Phoebe's Stadium, and 3 Warp Energy. So this man was not about to get PAL locked. Jay was another player that when I saw his list, I was like, I really hope I don't play against this dude. Like, I really just would not like to play against Jay. It's not that it would have been impossible. Like, his deck doesn't really have like a backup attacker, which can be useful against decks like Rat. But yeah, just really instructive. Like, yeah, I'm gonna like just solely focus on not getting my active stuck, and also like just being able to retreat between Bayonet EX is good for Bayonet. I mean, that means you get to use 2 of its shady moves every turn. And so helps him not only facilitate his normal game plan of using shady move a bunch and getting these KOs, but also um, making sure you don't get padlocked. Which, even though it doesn't seem like it'd be that likely to happen because you play cards that can discard things so you don't get Unknown Eid and you only play like a few basics, crazy things can happen. So, And also he plays the energy switch, and we saw this in Canton's deck as well. So I don't. I guess they just both independently came up with this idea, but it's really cool, and it's a really sick card. I wonder if we're going to see it employed like as a staple in Bayonet going forward, or in other decks in general. Um, but definitely a really cool inclusion, and Jay had a sick run. I'm just gonna check because in the last video is like not really checking what players we're playing against, and I feel like I should be doing that. So taking out Little River and Canton and May, like all of these top 8 players to get to top 8, like they almost all had, you know, had to beat very strong players to do it. Um, like taking out Canton is no small task. Um, and did eventually take the losses to Tord. If you'll notice, he's not playing any Windstorm. He's just opting for the full Phoebes. And I think that can bite you. Bayonet can definitely like cut through some of these Cess Stantlers, but it is hard if you're not playing any Windstorms. And I wonder if that would have came into play against his Railer games. Then we have Mysterious Player on Flygon Box. um, Mysterious Player plays just a whole bunch of different decks. He's kind of innovated this Kingdra EX deck for the most part. He's also played the Swampert EX, Metagross EX. He's kind of innovated that as well. Um, and he was playing Gardevoir against me and Nidoqueen, and he can play a whole bunch of decks to very high levels, I would say. Um, and this time he chose to bring Flygon EX, and I remember seeing him. We were both having pretty good runs this tournament, and I was like, "Ooh, I know Flygon EX can be hard for Rat. They often play high warp energy counts, and Flygon EX itself is just like such a pain. Like, Sceptile can't 1v1 it very well, and it just ruins your bench. Um, but the list he ended up going with, I'm not super like up to date with these Flygon Delta Box packages. I know that a lot of them play Pidgeot, and this one doesn't. He's opting instead for the Fearow to search out basically all the Pokemon in the deck. Um, Another thing is that he's playing just the 1/1 Executor. Doesn't really want to hone in on using that. And also, no Ray EX is kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of these do opt to just go with the Ray because it's such a good card. But he didn't. Also, not playing a Retriever. I guess saying that I play enough attackers, if I run out of those, I'm probably losing the game anyways. But this one looks very poised to do well against Bombtar. It's got the Sceptile EX, and that definitely helps against any bomb deck. And he also is on a Mew Star to help with the Rat decks and the anything kind of more stall oriented. Only one warp is a little sketchy. I think I always enjoy playing, 2 or even 3 warp in these kinds of decks, but you can't get it back with Flygon. You can't get it back with Mewstar, so I guess that's the logic there. Um, he's playing Holland Farmer. Okay, I totally missed that. So Holland Farmer to get back the attackers. Um, and I do like the Cyclone Energy. I think this card is like very cool. I have one in my Gardevoir EX deck. It's just nice to like force these like weird situations where you're able to attach an energy for turn and also like put your opponent in just like a weird position. It's like, oh, I didn't. Cyclone isn't really on most people's minds, and so even if you know the person's deck and you know they play Cyclone, it's still just like normally not what you're anticipating, and it's hard to play around it. But no, he did very well in Swiss. He lost round one and then proceeded to go 6-0, taking out Chiro and Jay. So taking out two top eight players on his way to top eight before losing to K. Yeah, incredible run by a mysterious player, and I'm glad that he picked something like this. We haven't really seen Flygon EX perform at the high level in a while, so it was nice to see it have a good showing here. And then my list, I already went through that. And then we have the top four. We have starting with Canton Magic Hand, the winner of last week's event. So he won last week and got top four at this week. And I believe that he is the only player to top both weeks, which is insane. It's just insane that there's like so many good players of this format and so many decks that like even if you're a good player and you're playing a good deck, if you just hit the wrong matchups, it can get very tough. Um, and yeah, just insane that Kenton is able to, and top four is an incredible achievement here. I mean, I don't want to like, it's only downplayed because his performance last week was otherworldly, but this is still an incredible run. Um, and so he played Bana, and as soon as I saw this list, I was like, dude, like, no shot he's playing this. Like, come on. He's playing the 4/4 Bana, of course, the Lunar Rock package, and like the good Lunatone to get the Soul Rock out of the active, because it has the Pokebody. He's playing Jinx so that he can free retreat his Bayonets all day. And he's playing both Mew Star and Fire Mew. So he can copy Pickup and he can copy Power Revenge if I ever try to take out, a bunch of Bayonet with Sceptile. He can just KO the Sceptile very easily with Mew. Um, in addition to that, he's playing 4 Warp Energy, uh, really slimming down on the other energy, saying 4 Psychic, 4 Rainbow is plenty, and just committing heavily to that Warp Energy, and it's really good against these sorts of decks. Um, Also playing the Energy Switch tech, like I talked about in Jay's list, and he's playing 4 Reversal like Heroes, and he's also opting for 4 Crystal Beach as opposed to 4 Phoebes. I guess just worried about LBS. Although LBS was completely shut out of this event. No Windstorm, I think, did kind of bite him in the Tord games, but otherwise, like it's a very clean list. It has a whole bunch of like cool text that you don't really see that I think can surprise players. The Mew Star and the Fire Mew and the Energy Switch, like they give Bana like a very solid backup attacker, and the 4 reversals, like again, most players aren't really able or thinking about playing in a position where they have to play around reversal. And I wonder if we're going to see more lists that play reversal going forward, not just Bayonet, but other decks. It's a crazy card. On heads, it's the best card in the game, and on tails, it's just like you missed an ER2. So who knows? But yeah, very, very nice run from Canton. And congratulations that he's topped both of these events with 2 very different decks, Bayonet and Bomb Champ. But yeah, very, very cool to see it. Um, then we have Frosty on Bombtar, and his list is a very like no nonsense list. He's been playing Bombtar for a long time, knows it's a very strong deck, and it's reflected in his list. He's not really playing any of the like I would say like cute things. It's the Lunar Rock package is new, and that's like the most like kind of off the wall thing that there is in it. I would say. Um, I think that was just a reaction to how many Pidgeot decks we had last week, and how like these Pidgeot decks are kind of trending, whereas the Trainer Lock and the Stantler decks are kind of trending down. It seemed, and so the Lunar Rock, it definitely helped him in his game against me. I'm sure it came up in other places for him. And oh wait, I didn't even. Oh yeah, no, I did. Sorry. No, wait, did I talk about Canton's? Sorry, did I go through this? It's too early for me. No, I definitely didn't. Okay, Canton, on his way to top eight, took out Chiro and he took out Little River. So not quite as difficult of a path to top eight, but he did take me out in the top eight. So ended up doing very well. And anyways, sorry that I got off this topic. I'll go back to Frosty. Um, but yeah, other than that, very no nonsense list. He's playing the Versus Seeker with no brinies. He just wants to have that access to a fifth copy of Admin. He's playing the triple heal just in case of any Stantler decks or Espeon Star. And other than that, not really a whole lot to say. It's a very solid list. He knows it very well, and let's see who he ended up playing. So he took out Jason, and he took out Kay, and he took out Kenton on his way to top eight. Um, so again, like these players did not have easy. Nobody really had like an easy run in a top eight. And then in top eight, he took out Chiro, who he lost to previously, and yeah, just an insane run with arguably the strongest deck in the format, and definitely good stuff to Frosty for this one. And then we are on to top two. We have K in second place, playing the people's champ, this Cradley deck, this crazy Cradley deck. He had posted about this deck before, and I remember looking at it and being like, "This looks awesome. I've got to try this out." And I still haven't, but I will. Um, so if you've never seen these cards before, the Sandstorm Cradley has a Flick Poison attack. Spiral Drain is not the worst like offensive attack. It does good damage and heals. But the main thing about this is its Pokebody. If Cradley's in the active, you just can't retreat. So you can use Lure Poison, get something stranded in the active, even like a Pidgeot, and you can just shut it down that way. And in addition to that, he's also playing the Power Keepers Cradley with Evolutionary Call, which is kind of like the well, it's the same as the Delta Meganium Evolutionary Call. And it also has Poison Ring, which is kind of like a combination of the other Cradley, where it just poisons and then has a clutch effect. Um, I like this comment. Play with Broken Town Space and casual matches. The effects can just be brutal. Very true, Feyblade. Um, but in addition to that, he's playing Jirachi to help him set up the 1/1 rat to recur these resources. And this really can be useful in these long, grindy games. And he's also on the Star for being able to copy opposing rats and also just have more versatility. He plays a lot of different energy, so it's probably gonna come up. And then the one Ray EX to if you get something locked in the active, then what better way to take advantage of that than with Ray EX using Special Circuit? Um, and then lastly, the Dunsparce to sort of use it to help you set up, but also to like confuse the active, and you can like confuse the active and like go into um, Cradley, and then it's locked in the active and can't retreat. So definitely a lot of synergy there. You can switch it to the root fossil as well to sort of deny prizes. Um, and then the support lineup, or the trainer lineup rather, is playing a Castaway engine, a mini Castaway engine of sorts. The two Fluffy Berry are really cool. They help the Cradley not get stuck in the active very often. And decks like what's the yeah decks like Railer don't play any windstorms, so if you get a fluffy berry on something, it's probably there to stay. Um, and then he also plays a very interesting energy lineup. He's kind of got like something for everything almost. He's got like the double rainbow to help power up his Cradily. He's got the Holland Energy GL to stop them from being confused by Stantler or anything else. He's also playing the Lightning Energy, so he can attack with the Ray EX. Helps him copy Special Circuit with Mustar as well, and it has, I mean, Holland Energy GL with the Lightning does come up where things can be just a little bit bulkier with the GL attached. And then he's playing 2 Warp, always a good card to have in this format, as well as the 2 Scramble in case things kind of go bad. He can use Cradily to make a comeback play, and we saw this come up in his games. So a super sick list. He had an incredible run, and I hope we see more of this deck because it's really awesome. And I just wonder like what else we can do with this. I mean, when I look at this list, it's like this looks awesome, but like, what if we played, Luna Rock in this? What if we played, more Curse Stones? What if we played Wobbuffet? I mean, there's just so many like ways that I feel like you can go about building this, and it's really cool to see this perform at this level. Um, and he, to be honest, looking at his road to top 8, he didn't have. I think beating Rogar is definitely huge. Rogar did very well. He got top 4 at the last one. Um, so that's very impressive. But then taking out both Mysterious Player and Frosty in top 8 is, I mean, it's incredible. The Frosty game and the games in particular were awesome. It was crazy to see this like cradily. He remember at one point he used Time Spiral with the leap and devolved a Dark Tyranitar, and Frosty didn't realize that this card put it into the deck. And like, it's just like I don't know. It's just funny seeing like these cards that players have never encountered and seeing them come up in high level games like this. And yeah, so then of course first place we have Tord Reklev on Railer. We did not see any Railer last week, and I think a lot of players did not sufficiently prep for it because they assumed it wouldn't be at this tournament. Which, to be fair, it really wasn't. I mean, it was Tord and I think one other Railer player. So there was a good chance that you would just miss it if you're just going through Swiss normally. But if you're doing well in Swiss and then you're playing in Top Cut, then you would probably play against it. Um, so like we didn't see as many Windstorm and the Bayonet decks, for example. But yeah, Tord taking it home with Railer. Very strong deck, very strong player. No Unknown E and no Mustar. No funny business with this list, at least in the Pokemon department. Um, and he also opts for the fan club as opposed to the Linettes because he's not playing Unknown or Mustar. It's usually not the best option. Um, Playing only 3 sets, I guess, is just a kind of like a, well, I want to focus more with Rayquaza EX anyways, so I don't need the 4th cess. It's an interesting option. I wonder if we're going to see it more moving forward. But I think he just had to make space. He's not playing like Mr. Stone's Project or whatever that card's called. And he's only playing 1 Balloonberry. And I think 15 is a little slim for Railer. I think they play 16 a lot. So he had to cut some cards in order to make room for these 4 Super Scoop Ups. And that was, I mean, I think that's going to become the norm more. I think that Super Scoop Up is just really critical in Railer, especially being able to get these Rayquaza EXs healed and out of bad situations. It's just very nice. Didn't play any TV Reporter. He opted strictly for 4 Marys and no Stevens either. Kind of an interesting approach, just saying like if I draw 3 every time with this deck, then I should be pretty good. Um, and then his games, he he had to beat Jay in order to get into top 8 basically. And then once he was in top 8, he just went on a tear. Played against Jay again. Played against Kanten. So he beat every Bayonet he came across, and then he beat K's uh, Cradley deck. So I would have loved to have taken him out in top 8. Be the people's champ. But what can you do? That wasn't the way the cookie crumbled this time. So incredible run by Tord. I mean, what more can you say? First place and perhaps the single most stacked RS to PK tournament ever is. I mean, what can you say? And seeing him just kind of take Railer to where it probably should be. It should be on the top. Uh, at least close to it. So, um, really cool deck diversity. We had Railer in first, Cradley in second, and then Bombtar and Bayonet third, fourth, and then uh, the rest of top 8 we had Ratlock, Flygon, Bayonet, and Legend Box. So very cool results, very cool lists. It was awesome to watch everybody play, and I think the next Stambler Open is not for a few months, so it gives players time to test some more ideas out and deck build. And I'm really excited to see what happens in the next one. But I think for now, that's going to do it for this video. So goodbye.